May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kerry Kornblum, MD. My last name is spelled Kornblum.
Mr. Kornblum, what do you do for a living?
I'm the pathologist and deputy coroner for Los Diablos.
What exactly is a pathologist?
It's very simple. The pathologist's role is to determine the manner and cause of death of individuals brought for an autopsy in the county. That's the role that I fulfill for the county, and I prepare autopsy reports for hearings such as this.
And what sort of training do you go through when learning on how to conduct an autopsy?
Well, I was admitted to Dartmouth University for my undergraduate degree. I was fortunate enough to return there to complete my medical degree. I've been board certified in pathology for the past 10 years, and essentially what that means is I have to go and attend seminars yearly to stay up to date on what's going on in the field of pathology so I can do my job effectively. I've been doing pathology for about 10 years now.
Dr. Kornblum, about how many autopsies in your 10-year career would you say you've performed?
You know, anywhere between 900 and 1,000. Unfortunately, a lot of people pass away in our county. It's a large county, and we're responsible for conducting a large number of autopsies.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to proffer Dr. Kornblum as an expert in pathology.
Any objection? Or any?
No objection specifically to the area of pathology.
Okay, very well. Go ahead.
Dr. Kornblum, I'd like to turn your attention to today's case. Can you tell the jury how is it you got involved?
Sure. I was called on to assess and perform an autopsy of the decedent in this case, Mr. Dwayne Lay, who was shot by police on October 31st of last year.
Your Honor, I have a document which has been pre-marked as Exhibit E for identification purposes. May I approach opposing counsel and the witness?
You may.
Would Your Honor like a courtesy copy?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Dr. Kornblum, what have I just handed you?
This is the autopsy report that I prepared with respect to my autopsy of Mr. Lay.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate copy of the autopsy you performed on Mr. Lay?
Sure does, yeah.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer what has been pre-marked as Exhibit E into evidence as Exhibit E.
Any objection?
One objection, Your Honor. Hearsay within hearsay. On the last page of this document, there's a notation that the Detective Pratt and Miller of the Los Diablos Police Department were scheduled to witness the autopsy but did not attend. This would be hearsay within hearsay, for which there is no exception.
May I respond to that, Your Honor?
You may.
The fact that it states that they were not present to attend, Your Honor, that is not hearsay within hearsay. Hearsay within hearsay would have to be another person stating something on that specific part, Your Honor. Now, this entire document falls under a medical diagnosis and treatment, Your Honor, as well as a regular course of business activity, Your Honor. There is no hearsay within hearsay.
Your Honor, if this particular statement is to be asserted as part of the normal course of business for a medical examiner, I believe counsel has not laid proper foundation as to this particular statement. Furthermore, Your Honor, this is hearsay because this statement was written not under oath, not in any court, and therefore is directly hearsay.
Well, I'm going to admit the report as a document, a public record, so we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Yes. Now, Dr. Kornblum, in this case, were you able to come to a conclusion within a reasonable degree of medical certainty on the cause and manner of death of Mr. Lay?
Yes, I was.
What was that opinion?
Well, Mr. Lay suffered from 5 gunshot wounds. 3 of the 5 were fatal and could have contributed to death. 1 certainly contributed to death. And the one that certainly contributed to his death in a very quick amount of time was a gunshot wound to the back of Mr. Lay's head that exited the right front eye of Mr. Lay. The other 2 were to his back shoulder. All the injuries to the back shoulder were fatal.
Dr. Kornblum, I'd like to walk through all of those gunshot wounds. You mentioned that some of those gunshots were fatal. you tell the jury where were the fatal gunshot wounds?
The fatal gunshot wounds were fired at and struck Mr. Lay from behind, his back, 2 in the shoulder, 1 in the back of the head.
You also mentioned there were 2 more gunshot wounds. Where were these?
The other 2 gunshot wounds were fired at Mr. Lay from the front and struck him on the left shoulder in 2 different areas.
Now, while conducting your autopsy on the body of Mr. Lay, was there anything else you discovered?
Yes, I discovered, again, as in my role as a pathologist, I determined both the cause and the manner of death. One of the things that I noticed was that the wound to the back of Mr. Lay, one of those 2 wounds, the lower wound, contained stippling. And that was an evidence that I found while examining the body.
Now, doctor, can you explain to the jury first, what is stippling?
Objection, Your Honor. We do not believe that this witness is qualified as an expert to testify as to the matters of stippling, Your Honor.
We're going to find out here in a second, I think. He's going to ask him some questions and attempt to lay a foundation, see if he has any experience to tell us what that is.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, your objection is noted. Go ahead.
Dr. Crum, I'd like for you to explain to the jury a little bit about your education and what you learned on how to conduct the manner, on what the manner someone is killed.
Absolutely. The field of pathology is a broad one. First, law school must be difficult for you, counselor, but medical school is certainly very difficult when we cover a broad range of topics. Now, with respect to my certification in pathology, as a certified member of the Board of Pathology, I'm aware of all manners within, of course, our current scientific understanding in which a person is killed. In order to determine that, we observe scientific phenomena, such as stippling, that help us understand the manner of death. And I routinely refer to these scientific principles in coming to my determinations.
Now, in learning about the manner of death about Mr. Lay, you told us that you discovered something known as stippling. Doctor, I don't know what stippling is. We don't learn that in law school. So can you explain to the jury, as well as myself, what is stippling?
Objection, Your Honor. Same objection. This witness is not qualified as an expert. If Your Honor would like, I would like an opportunity to voir dire this witness on the matter of stippling.
I'll give you an opportunity to voir dire him on that and find out why medical school was so hard, too. I prefer a doctor that was easy.
Dr. Kornblum, yes. Doctor, you told us a little bit about some of your experience. You went to medical school, which you already noted is quite difficult. During medical school, did you go over the issues of stippling?
Not necessarily that I can tell you that I specifically did in medical school or through my certification with the Board of Pathology. Over the course of 10 years, I attend a number of seminars covering a broad range of topics. And again, stippling is part of determining the manner of death, which is part of my job.
So, doctor, specifically, you talked about some of the seminars you attended, but you did mention that you're board certified. Are you board certified in the area of stippling?
Stippling would be like understanding...
Doctor, my question is pretty simple.
Objection,
Are you
Your Honor.
board...
No, he's asking a straightforward question. I think he can answer it. Go ahead.
Doctor, are you board certified in the area of stippling?
There is no board for stippling. It's
Okay.
a phenomenon, not an area of study.
Okay. All right. Have you ever testified as an expert before with regard to stippling?
Again, as a pathologist, we relate and refer to all the scientific principles at our disposal in making our determinations as to the manner of death, stippling being one of those principles.
So is your testimony here today for the first time that you have testified as an expert before with regard to stippling?
I've testified as a pathologist. As part of my job as a pathologist, we consider stippling. I have never stated before that stippling is specifically what I testify about in previous cases.
Okay. So do you have any certifications with regard to stippling?
Again, beyond the medical degree, which was very difficult to earn, and the board certification.
The answer is no, doctor.
No, there is no certification, particularly for
I didn't
stippling.
ask if it was board certified. I was just asking if you have any other type of certifications with regard to stippling.
No, I don't.
Do you have any journals? Have you written anything about stippling?
No, it's not something that I've written about.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, we still would like to offer our objection that this doctor is not qualified as an expert with regard to stippling.
Okay.
May I respond to that, Your Honor?
You may.
The witness has just told us that in the field of pathology, stippling is a phenomenon that he studies and has practices and has testified to before numerous times. The witness has also told us there's no such thing as being board certified in stippling or certifications of stippling, Your Honor. The witness certainly has the expertise to tell the jury what stippling is as a pathologist.
Your Honor, if I may briefly be heard, this witness has merely stated that he doesn't know if there's any certifications in stippling, and clearly he has already stated that he's not certified in stippling. We have no objections to this witness testifying that he has observed stippling in his area as a pathologist, but to say what stippling is will require much more scientific certainty, much more experience, something that this witness does not have.
We're going to have him testify as a pathologist of what his experience is with regard to stippling and how many cases he's seen before, and we'll take it from there. How about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
We're not going to certify him as a firearms examiner at all.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Kornblum, I'd like you to explain to the jury the phenomenon of stippling as you have learned in your experience as being a medical doctor and practicing for 10 years.
Sure. Stippling, and again, it's been 10 years, 900 to 1,000 autopsies. What stippling is a series of black dots that we find surrounding a bullet wound that is shot within and received within 2 feet distance. Generally, where we find stippling is in those circumstances where the individual was shot within a range of 2 feet. And again, stippling refers to the phenomena, we can't explain it, but we observe it, of the black dots that appear on wounds at that range.
Now, Doctor, what gunshot wounds on Mr. Lay had stippling from what you observed?
As I mentioned earlier, only one of the 5 wounds contained stippling. That was a wound to the lower back shoulder of Mr. Lay, and that told me some things about the manner of Mr. Lay's wound with respect to that particular phenomena that I observed.
He told us as a pathologist, you also determined the manner in addition to the cause of death. Now, when you discovered Mr. Lay had stippling on one of his gunshot wounds, what did that mean for the manner in which he was killed?
Well, because I didn't find stippling, at least I looked for stippling on the back of the head, but the hair kind of made it somewhat impossible to determine one way or another. I did not find stippling on the back of the head. As for the other wounds, I didn't find any stippling. So finding only stippling on one wound and not the other 4 indicated to me that at some point during the encounter, either Mr. Lay fell backwards into the bullets as they were fired.
Your Honor, we would object to this witness testifying as to being able to reconstruct the scene of the shooting. There has been no foundation laid as to...
You're going to have an opportunity to cross-examine him. So if he's getting way off the reservation here, you can have fun with him, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Doctor, you were explaining to us what the stippling on...
Right. It's very simple. Either at some point during the encounter, the distance between the 2 parties, the officer and Mr. Lay, closed. Either he fell backwards towards the bullets, or the officer approached and got closer towards Mr. Lay.
In performing your autopsy, was there anything else you learned about Mr. Lay?
I did take samples of his body, and I determined that at some point prior to the shooting, he had intoxicated some level of cocaine and alcohol.
Now, first, doctor, was it in any way possible that the cocaine or alcohol caused his death that night?
No, people don't die from consumption of cocaine or alcohol independent of other circumstances.
Were you able to determine when he consumed the alcohol or cocaine?
No, all I could determine was that at some point prior to the shooting, which is at some point prior to his death, he had consumed those 2 substances and that they were found in his system.
Thank you for your time, Doctor. Your Honor, at this time, I have no further questions.